Hi, I'm Ilia Harvey and welcome to Pie Cookery School. If you have one of our bread roll mixtures, then you would have been to one of our cookery parties recently, and I'm just going to talk you through on how to make the most delicious bread rolls based on that. So what you will need a bowl, your bread mixture, and you will need 88 grams of water. And the best way to get your water is to weigh it, preferably on some digital scales. So you put your mixture into your bowl, and then you will add your water. Mix it all through. I'm just using my finger to start with. That way I'm not getting the whole of my hand dirty. And then I'm going to empty it out onto the table, and then we're going to knead it. So try and get as much out of your bowl as you can. And that way your bowl will be nice and clean for you to use when you've kneaded your dough. So get it off your fingers, because it can get very, very sticky. Okay, just going to knead it. And the best thing to do when you're kneading is to use the palm of your hand rather than your fingers. If you're using your fingers, the bread mixture's got more places to stick. So use your palm of your hand, and that way you can give it much more energy. So I'm going to start just by mixing it all together, because it takes a little bit of time for the flour to be absorbed by the water. And don't feel tempted to add extra water, because that's when you're at risk of getting a loaf that's a bit like a brick. So you're kneading away with the palm of your hand. If you're finding that a little bit too difficult, use your other hand and then press down on your kneading hand. That way you'll be able to give it a lot more energy, and energy is definitely something you need when you're kneading your bread. Otherwise you can use alternate hands and do it that way. So I've been kneading away now for about 5 minutes and I'm nearly done. And the consistency that you're looking for, you're wanting your dough to be lovely and smooth. Certainly you don't want to have any lumps in there, but when you've been kneading away for this length of time, it should feel lovely, and it should come away from the table nicely, and it shouldn't be too sticky. But don't be tempted to add any more flour, because this is when you're running at risk of creating a bit of a brick loaf. And this one, we want it to be nice and airy and delicious. So I'm about done. It feels lovely. So what you want now is you want to get your bowl back, and then you're going to put your dough in your bowl, then cover it with cling film or with a damp tea towel, and you're just going to store it somewhere in your kitchen at room temperature out of a draft for about an hour. As you can see, the bread has now risen. I'm going to remove the cling film. I'm going to take the bread out of the bowl. Before I do that, I'm just going to sprinkle a bit of the flour onto the work surface. The bread's a bit sticky in the bowl, but that doesn't matter. And it's immediately going to shrink when you get it out. So I'm just going to cover my hands in a bit of the flour, and I'm just going to knead it around a little bit more, and then we're going to just make it into some shapes. Okay. So I'm just rolling it out, and I'm going to get about 4 little shapes out of there. I've got a pastry slice here, of which I'm going to use to cut up the bread. You can use a normal knife. So I'm just going to divide it into 4 and easiest way to get a bread roll is just to flatten it, and then using this part of your hand, you're going to come up to create your bread roll. That is going to go on to a baking tray along with some of the others that I've already done, and I'm going to cover that with a damp tea towel, and then I'm going to put it in a warm, draft-free area for 45 minutes. In the meantime, you're going to preheat your oven to the highest setting, and then when your bread rolls have risen nicely, you're going to put them in the oven for about 15 minutes or until they're nice and golden. And there you have it, some delicious bread rolls. I hope you enjoyed coming to a cookery party, and I hope to see you again in the future.